Hi, in this video we are going to be covering painting some autumn foliage using watercolor. But before we jump right into the painting process, I'll just walk you through some exciting footage of how I went collecting some nice colored foliage. Hi! So, it's cold right now, about 7 degrees in Luxembourg, and the weather has been quite gloomy in the last 3 weeks over here in Europe, especially West Europe, where we have been receiving torrential rain and no sunlight at all. So there's a little bit of sunlight today, as you can see. So decided to take a stroll down this nearby park where I live in Luxembourg, and thought it would be great to pick up some dry foliages. Okay, this leaf has got some interesting color. Western Europe could definitely relate to the weather that I'm going through right now. Very gloomy autumn, yet so cold. And it's gonna get very much cloudy and rainy again for the next 1 week. Lots of twigs on the road, debris, due to the strong winds in the last 1 week. It's quite unique. Oh, some sort of a fruit, is it? Have you seen this kind of flower or fruit where you live? Let me know if you have any idea about this tree. It looks beautiful though. There you go. You can see the sun rays that illuminates the upper sky, but then the clouds are working really hard to block the sunlight. Let's keep searching for more foliages. Okay, there's another bright yellowish tree over here. Let's see if we can pick some of it. Okay. This looks nice. Okay, here's another tree with interesting colors. Just take a few. It's a nice color. Okay, this is one beautiful tree. Let's see if I can grab some. So I managed to collect several interesting looking dry leaves, foliage, but then I only had a look at them to start my painting process the very next day because I had something else to do on the day I collected them. So I noticed that the leaves have become a bit crumbled, especially at the edges, but no worries, they still look bright in color, and it seemed like an interesting activity to do. As a time pass, as well as keeping yourself fit. And do you like collecting flowers or leaves like this for your painting? I find it very much inspiring, because sometimes you get quite bored looking at reference photos for paintings. So these are my collections for that day, and I'm decided to make 7 different leaves painting. So I'm going to shortlist the leaves foliage based on the type of colors, shape and textures that I notice on the leaves. And since it's going to be 7 leaves, it's going to be a very long video, so I've decided to split them into part 1 and part 2. And here's a color palette as a rough idea on the type of colors that I'm going to use. And even though I'm using watercolors, I decided to use a digitalized color label, because there can be slight differences from one watercolor brand to another. So I'm just going to trace out all those 7 leaves that I've decided to paint on an A3 sized watercolor paper. It will be much easier to trace them instead of just drawing them from scratch. So for this entire painting process, I'll be using wet on wet method, whereby the pre-sketch leaf shapes will be pre-wet with clean water. And for the first leaf, I have decided to use a bright red mixed with crimson as a base color, and dropped in some Indian yellow in the middle of the leaf. I'm using more of the crimson towards the edges or surrounding the leaves shape. And I would advise to work very fast while the motif is still wet, so that you can achieve the smooth look like I'm doing right now. To make the leaf appear more darker, I've decided to add in some ruby red to the crimson. Since the red has bled deep into the middle part of the leaf, I have decided to drop in some yellow ochre. The ruby red color is from Schminke Autumn brand, so you can use any other deep red from other brands as well. And as for some marks on the leaf, I'm just dropping in some sapphire or dark brown. Moving on to the second leaf, started off by pre-wetting the leaf, and the first color is sapphire mixed with some burnt sienna. Notice how quickly the color bleeds in when you start painting with a wet on wet method. And for the bottom half of the leaf, I've used burnt sienna mixed with some yellow ochre. And I've mixed a little bit of black to the sapphire color mix to drop in some marks that I've noticed on the leaf. So as I complete the first layer of painting for each leaf motif, as I move from one to another, I'll just leave them to dry and go back to add on more details as required. So moving on with the third leaf, I've used a mix of Indian yellow and lemon yellow to make it look bright. Adding on more Indian yellow towards the middle of the leaf. And while it's still wet, I'm just dropping in some olive green, or you can use sap green, to create an impression of the pattern seen on the yellow leaf. Not forgetting a mixture of sapphire for the dark marks seen on the leaf. Can use a fine tip brush for these particular details. And once satisfied with the look of this leaf, I'm gonna leave it to dry and move on to the next leaf. Starting off with the pre-wet surface, and I'm dropping in the olive green or sap green, similar to the color pattern that I noticed on the leaf, which is on the right hand side towards the bottom and as well as the top of the leaf. As for the second color, I'm using burnt sienna, which is a bright brown, mixed with some crimson. And I've also decided to spread that color mix to most part of the leaf, as the leaf actually looks more reddish brown, so it's dominating the green color. And now I'm using a third color, which is a mixture of the ruby red, or you can use a very deep red, with sapphire, the darker brown, and the result is burgundy. And I'm just applying the burgundy color mix only on certain area of the leaf. And right now I'm just using a damp brush to soften the hard edges that I noticed on the leaf, as well as cleaning up the bleeding outside the motif. So moving back to the first leaf that I've painted, since it's completely dry, it's the right time to paint the lines or veins on the leaves. It would be best to use a script brush or rigger brush with the size between 0 or 1, so that you can achieve the fine lines easily. I'm using a mixture of the deep red with crimson to achieve this dark red mix. Just reduce the pressure that you apply on the brush tip as you move from the middle towards the end. And you don't have to be so precise with regards to the veins of the leaves. Just be very casual or free flow by observing the leaves that you have collected or your reference photo. And for the base of the leaf, or petiole we call it, I'm using sapphire, which is the darker brown that I've used earlier, since it's a dry leaf, and also using the same color to drop in some dots as marks on the same leaf. And moving on to the second leaf painting, which has also dried completely, and using the same script brush, I'm using a mixture of burnt sienna and yellow ochre. Well, although the veins color looks a bit lighter on this leaf painting, I have a reason for that, which is to try a negative painting on this leaf. So I'll come back to that later on this video, and right now I'm just repainting the veins that I've tried out way much lighter. So quickly painting those veins in before I move on to the next leaf. So once again I'm using a mixture of sapphire with a little hint of black, since the vein on this yellow leaf, especially in the middle, seem to be a bit sharp. So I'm just painting that in using the same script brush. So by now you would have definitely observed and understood that the fine details on a leaf is way much easier to paint when the entire leaf painting is dry. So it's important to let the base colors or the first layer to completely dry and then jumping into the details. If you try to paint in the veins of the leaves while the main motif is still wet or semi-wet, I'm afraid you won't get a very crisp line like this. However, there is one method that is still workable or might work while the first layer is still wet, which is by scratching the first layer of paint while it's still wet with a sharp object, for example a broken credit card or toothpick, and you might get a good result if you're looking for a very light colored leaf vein, whereas in my particular painting the veins are actually in darker colors, so I don't choose to do the scratching method. And as for this leaf, I noticed that it looks too perfect, so I've decided to use a damp brush, a flat damp brush, to just brush off some of the veins that I've done earlier to give it a washout look so that it appears more natural. And while the paper is semi-damp, I'm dropping in the same mixture of sapphire and black for some of the marks or textures on the leaf. And the second color for the marks is burnt sienna to enhance the look of this yellow leaf. And once again trying to achieve the washout look with a damp brush. Moving on to the fourth leaf, using the same mixture of sapphire with a hint of black and quickly drawing in those veins. And at this point of time, I must say I'm still not quite done with the rest of the leaf painting, so I'm just letting you know that I'll be going back to those leaves painting to add on more final details. And also for the remaining 3 more leaves that I'm supposed to cover from this project, painting project, I'll be covering that in my next video, which I'll be posting in next week. So I hope you'll be looking forward to my second part of the leaves painting, which will be exciting as well. So if you have subscribed, don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notification of my latest videos. And for those who haven't subscribed, if you find my video exciting and educational, don't forget to subscribe. So moving on to the second leaf, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do negative painting technique. So I have pre-wet leaf motif surface, and now I'm dropping in a mixture of the sapphire and burnt sienna and quickly painting this color in by leaving out those veins that I've painted earlier. So this is what we call negative painting, whereby we leave out some parts that were painted much lighter earlier or on the first layer, and quickly dropping in some sapphire mixed with black for the darker marks on the leaf, and I'm using yellow ochre to darken the bottom half of the leaf, and I'm using the same yellow ochre mix by painting over the veins using just the tip of the brush, just to give it an enhanced look or brighter look, and finishing off the base of the leaf using the script brush with a touch of sapphire and burnt sienna. Moving on to the third leaf, it looks fine, but I felt that it has dried way much lighter, so I decided to use a glazing method by using a light mixture of Indian yellow and glaze it over the dry surface, and quickly dabbing in some olive green for an extra effect. As for the fourth leaf, it has also dried way much lighter, so I'm just pre-wetting the surface with clean water and dabbing in the same burgundy mix that I painted earlier. And as an additional touch, I am just dabbing in some of the Indian yellow mix that I use for the third leaf, just to make this leaf look a bit more vibrant. And finishing it off by painting the fine details on the edge of the leaf by using a script brush and a mixture of sapphire with a little bit of black. Also repainting the base of the leaf and veins, since it has been covered by the second layer of paint that I did earlier. So it's just a touch up of the earlier veins that I painted. Okay, almost done painting the veins of this leaf. Now for some extra marks or pattern on the leaves, using the same color mixture, just randomly dropping in those colors, and with the damp brush I'm just reactivating the pigment that I applied earlier, just to give it a washout effect similar to the one that I did on the yellow leaf. And with this I end the first part of this foliage painting. So the next remaining 3 leaves will be painted in my next video that I will post next week. So hope you find my video educational, and look forward to seeing you again on my channel. And if you really liked this video, don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching. Bye.